Hey, welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics to help you optimize your life. I am Jeremy, your host. I'm here today with my partner in crime inside of the First Form app, Mr. Montae.
Good morning, Jeremy. Good morning, everybody.
No, or evening or afternoon, whenever you are watching or listening to this podcast.
I never think about that. It could be
That's all right.
people
That's okay.
everywhere.
Hey, it's been a hot minute, man. I don't know when the last one we updated. I haven't seen it. This has been a adjustment year for me with Katie, coaching college softball and just um a fun but hectic, summer. By the time we did our Team Alpha event, by the time I did military this summer, I feel like the summer just went by very, very quickly and didn't do a lot of podcasts.
Yeah, summer smash, travel. I feel like you are gonna hang Christmas lights on your car this year because you're just pretty much living in it.
Listen, I mean, it was a week for, weekish in St. Louis for Summer Smash, weekish, for our Team Alpha event. So there's 2 weeks. I had a week in Virginia Beach for the military. There was 3 weeks. We spent 2 weeks on the road for our vacation. So I'm up to 5 weeks of the summer, were spent traveling that I can remember.
I want
So,
to say
but
I think
hey,
there's more than that.
yeah, there probably was another one in there, but it was fun. It was I was talking a little bit offline with this to you. Like I feel mentally, spiritually, physically, kind of rested and good, right? And it's been a while since I feel like all those have been hitting, on all cylinders. And I think it's a combination of getting to spend some time with people that we coach, right? And having those one-on-one connections and those conversations, between Summer Smash and the Team Alpha event, and then just getting to spend some time in the woods, right? Like, I think that for me always fills my cup and helps me emotionally and helps me spiritually from that standpoint. So I'm super excited about this new season of life, which we generally call into summer, beginning of the school year, the fall. It's going to be hectic, but just a different type of hectic.
Yeah, I'm in my first ever school year for kids, so I'm ready to learn some.
Yeah, tell me about this 4-year-old having practices from 6 to 8. Was it 6 to 8?
So 6 or 7:30 to 8:30. So we signed Hazel up for pre-K t-ball and soccer. And I was like, hey, I asked Hannah, I was like, hey, should we sign up for soccer? She had already signed up for t-ball. She was like, yeah. She was like, they don't have practices. They're four. They go out and they practice a little bit before the game. And I was like, all right, well, let's sign her up because I want to get her into, playing with other kids, being active. And yeah, come to find out, both of them have practices a couple nights a week and games. So it's like a full week of just practices and games for a 4-year-old. And the practices are 7:30 to 8:30, which her bedtime is 8 o'clock.
Well, no, it was like when you were telling me that it was crazy. It was a little bit later.
Which I'm all for practicing and everything. But like you would think they would just have them earlier in the day, especially like knowing they have school the next day, bedtime,
100%.
dinner. I'm very interested to see how we navigate this because also another thing with that is I'm gonna have Winnie with me, which Winnie is 16 months now, and because Hannah works late some of these nights, so it's just gonna be me and the girls, and I'm gonna have to figure it out.
Party. Hey, put her on you. Walk, man. You can
There
walk.
you go, yeah, get some walking in.
There's always that we're in it too. So Brady, my oldest, was successful and earned, I like to say this, right? Not, because it's truly, it's tryouts. He earned a spot on the football team and on the cross country team. So he's the only kid in school that's going to be doing both. So it's 3 days a week of running in the morning and then, 5 days a week of practice in the evening. So I'm really excited about this phase of life for a couple of different reasons, right? Because, he's really like from a nutritional standpoint. So here I'm getting to be a nerd and geek out and teach my son, right? So nutrition matters more to him now than it did before. So like, this morning I made sure he had a protein shake and a Cliff Bar to consume after the practice, right? On top of what he was having for his lunch. And we generally do turkey sandwiches. He's in a turkey and bacon, sandwich, niche right now, right? Is his go-to. So it's making sure that he's got enough fuel for now doing these 2 workouts a day, practice or slash running. So it's kind of neat to see. And we did start him, just update and education. Like we started him on 5 grams of creatine, because it's a question I get a lot of times when we educate on creatine, like, hey, what are you going to do with your kids? And I was always waiting till Brady made it a commitment that sport wanted to be his thing, right? So Katie and I have been really big on not pushing him into sport, and letting them choose what they wanted to do. And when now that it's a priority to him, okay, that's when we want to step in and be able to assist as much as possible, making it a priority and letting him have success in those sports.
That was one of my favorite things. One of the things takeaways from Team Alpha Weekend when there was a lot of creatine education was just like people asking if kids should take creatine. Dr. Chad was pretty much like, I'm 100% okay with it, but I want to make sure that is their priority. That's what they're going to focus on, and then they know that the nutrition part is going to be the main thing, and then we supplement with the creatine after that.
100%. I think it's the same thing when the question came up the other day, like when can kids start lifting, right? When they're mature enough. Right, because playing, listen, them jumping and playing on out in the yard on trees and all that, like that puts more stress on the body than quote unquote lifting weights. So it's the question of when are they mature enough, right? And Brady now is, he's been lifting. He's done, CrossFit when we were in St. Louis. I mean, heck, we took him into CrossFit Thunder, our gym that we owned in West Virginia, and he played around with stuff, when he was a baby. But like we never pushed it because until it becomes a priority, right? So now it's a priority for him because he cares. He has feelings about football. He cares about his times in cross country. So it's cool phase to be in because I feel like the entire family's nutrition has gotten better. This past month, or past few weeks since we've been back leading into the season. So something super excited, from our end there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but hey, I know we're going to cover a couple things today. Other than that, but we're kind of going to you're going to ask me some questions about my trip and what we ate to fuel our almost 80 hours of hiking. Or sorry, 80 miles of hiking. So it's probably more than 80 hours. I don't even know how many hours. No, it'd be less than 80. It was not 80 hours. 80 miles of hiking for sure. I don't know how many hours that would be. And 3 bike rides. So that's what we got in on our trip was 3 mountain bike sessions, almost 80 miles of walking. And then I want to flip over to you and kind of talk about you're now training for a marathon, but still doing the running 1 mile a day. So I want to talk about a couple of things. So we did do, some trial and error with some run walk programs with our clients over the summer. Give you guys some feedback on, what came from that quote unquote little study that we did among our team. And there's some stats I have, and we'll start with the stats I think is important. And I want to push people, right? And I think that's something that, we see in our society right now is people are just so comfortable being comfortable. And we see it in society, right? People are just comfortable. We see it in customer service, when we go and we try to work with other customer services, and just try to get things done. People are just so comfortable in going in and clocking in, doing the minimum to get by with the day and clocking out. And it is so frustrating to see. And sometimes it is so hard if you have to work in that environment. But the reality is this, and this is some numbers that you guys can pull these numbers up too, but only 1 to 2% of Americans have ran a half marathon. 1 to 2%. Less than 1% have ran a full marathon. And then when you get into the ultra running, which would be, we're going into there, okay, 50K, 30 some miles or longer would be considered ultra. 0.007% of Americans have completed an ultra marathon. And my thoughts on this is if we held a gun to someone's head, most people could go out and run a marathon if they had to. It would hurt. They might be broken down the next day. Like it would be miserable,
Next
but
week.
they could physically do it. So that comes back to like I would say that most people, have just weak minds when it comes to what they can physically do themselves. So if you're listening to this, I'm going to challenge you. Okay, I'm going to challenge you to go run a half marathon, right? Run, walk it, right? Get in condition to do it. And I got it. There is a small percentage, and I'll say that again, a small percentage that should not be running for whatever reason. I get that. Small percentage from a medical standpoint, but that's a very small percentage. Most people, you say, oh, well, my knees hurt or my back hurts or this. It's because you're 60, 80, 100 pounds overweight. That's the reality. Or even 20 pounds overweight. That's what's causing the pain. Or you are deconditioned so that it is very uncomfortable to run, right? And we took a lot of our people in our team this summer, and what we were trying to do, because I always had been reluctant on adding a lot of running into people's programs because running will increase your appetite. So if we're trying to reduce calories, fat loss is the number one goal. We're trying to really control appetite. So when people go to start running, sometimes that causes the increase in appetite. And that's the reason we've leaned on walking so much as a tool to help with body fat composition changes. But what we were trying to find is a sweet spot this summer of having people do, okay, hey, add in 3 to 5 minutes of running, mid session of your walk, right? Playing around with this. And what I seen, and Montae, you can get some feedback from your people on this, was as people got better at running mechanically and better condition, they were able to keep their heart rates lower and when I say run, maybe a jog, right? If you're thinking pace wise, and we didn't see the increase in appetites. The first week, maybe we did because people went a little bit too hard. But once we start programming easy run and just noting, like, hey, guys, you're not trying to kill these runs. You're actually just kind of just running and jogging a little bit within the walk. Appetite didn't seem to be a problem with everybody.
Agree. Yeah, I noticed the same thing with my people. The first week, there was a couple of little spikes in hunger, but after that, when they continue to keep it going, they started noticing like, hey, like I'm not actually getting this hungry anymore.
Yeah.
And like you
And
said, I saw people were going out there and running like on the easy days, 9 minute pace. And like for some people, don't get me wrong, that might be an easy day, but I know 9 minute pace for me, like I'm pushing it.
you're pushing it, correct. And I think that's what gets lost in a lot of times. Like, these ultra runners and these people that are really fast that might be running like 5, 6, 7 minute miles, they can go out and run 9 and 10 minute miles, and they're still in a fat burning, quote, heart rate zone. Right. And so I think that's where, someone's new to their journey and just starting running, yes, make it easy. Walk, run, keep your heart rate down. It'll burn more calories, which could expedite your fat loss, but also you can run a half marathon. Like you can physically do it. But most people, it's a mental thing that they think they can't do it or they're afraid to put themselves out there. So that's one thing I am going to challenge anyone that listens to this podcast is to, hey, sign up for a half marathon, sign up for a marathon, go do it. Okay. You need help along the way, reach out to me. I'll help program the workouts for you, help hold you accountable, whatever it is. But I think a lot of people just need to stretch themselves beyond what they're comfortable doing in order to succeed in this. I'm not saying you have to become a runner, I'm not saying you have to do it every year. But hey, join this 1, 2% of Americans that go out and do something different. Or hey, set back and continue to be, quote unquote average, and not push yourself. That's okay too.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. Some of the people that, start off too with the running, they end up becoming runners. Or, I mean, we talk about all the time, the fat loss journey, ideally, you're going to eventually get to that point you want to get to. And like, what's next? What are we going to do
Yeah.
next? And I have a lot of individuals who went through that fat loss journey and now they are training for things like half marathons, marathons. And it's just their new niche that they have that's keeping them going on this wellness journey.
Love it. And you are now doing a marathon training program, right? And it's out of the first form app.
Yeah, I am. And
Okay. So week 2.
yeah, this is week 2.
Yeah. And I think that's something we fail sometimes to mention. We talk about our coaching a lot, which is, you want to have a conversation with someone, just ask them about themselves, right? So we speak a lot here of, what we do inside the app as advisors and making recommendations and changes. But one thing I would point out is the First Form app has a lot of workouts already programmed in it. And half marathon, high rocks, all of them are examples of specific training programs that you can download the app and follow those programs, from that standpoint. Okay. So maybe you don't want to work with me in Monte. You can still download the First Form app, do the non-premium version, and just get the workouts. That's totally fine too. Right. So a lot of people don't know that. So I feel like I need to mention that, a little bit better within the education and in our talk tracks.
100%. Yeah, it's week 2. And you talked about the mental side of things. This is the first I've tried this program 2 other times. This is the first I made it in the program because week 1 on the other 2 times it came to that first run, which is 8 miles, which is I've done a full marathon now and 4 half marathons,
Yeah.
but without any obligation to go out and run. I just dislike running. That was the furthest I've ever ran, and usually when it came up to the 8 mile day, I made excuses. I didn't push myself. I didn't go do it. But this week I did go do it. Made myself proud. And you mentioned something earlier about 60, 70 pounds overweight, so running is hard. The last time I ran that distance, I was about 30 pounds heavier. So mentally, I was thinking about that, but I was able to push myself. It was hot. I think it was like 90 degrees and very humid here when I ran that, and was able to make it the whole 8 miles because I am 30 pounds lighter than I was that last time.
Yeah, I mean you're big in general, right? Like, even thin Monte, is still going to be carrying some mass. So like that's the reality of your frame at 6'6" or 6'8", 6'8".
6'8", I think the lowest I've been is like 260. So
Right.
like still carrying a lot of weight.
Yeah, and that's to my point earlier. Like, once again, and I'm not saying like everyone, I want everyone to be a runner, right? And I know there is a small percentage population that you physically can't run, but what we've seen is a lot of people, well, I can't do that, because X, Y, or Z. Most of the times that is just an excuse that we're telling ourselves, right? And I'm not condoning this or anything like that, but like David Goggins had 5 surgeries on his knee in the 18 months, I think was the stats, or the numbers I saw yesterday. And he just finished a 200-mile run. And I'm not saying that. I'm not saying go out and do a 100-mile run if you just had surgery. I'm not saying that, right? I understand that there should be, hey, okay, get on a bike, right? If there's truly an injury there, you could go do something else. But what my point is, a lot of people are shortchanging what they can physically do because of their mind, not because of their physical capability. And that's my challenge, right? Is for people to step out of their comfort zone, go do something hard. Don't worry about the time. Just attempt to finish it. And that is, more than, once again, 99% of the population has done. So
100%.
have you picked a certain event, or do you have a certain time frame? Like you're just going to follow the program and then run it, at the end of the program?
So we do. There's a 10-week program, and it's going to end right at when the app team does our yearly marathon because we run the yearly marathon. And I haven't decided if I'm going to actually sign up. I might do the one here in Louisville or the Indianapolis Monumental. Those are the ones on my mind because I went to the Monumental last year and watched a whole bunch of people run. I know Seth's doing it again this year, but
Love it.
I had to prove to myself that I was actually going to do it. And I've told myself I was going to do this multiple times. So when I said something to the wife, she was like, "You're not signing up for anything and paying for it unless you actually train for it."
I love it. Good for her. Yeah, I've actually missed it the past 3 years because I have other races. So two theoretically I paid it back, right? 2 of the years was Ironman Florida, because we always do the marathon as a team like the last weekend of October, somewhere around Halloween in that time frame. So it was always my taper weeks leading up to the Ironman. So, but maybe this year, depending on what's going on. I know I have my race in Alabama in last weekend of October, so I might have to do it the following week. We'll figure it out. Make sure it happens. So,
I'm gonna hold you to that. Everybody here heard it.
hey, listen, did you find anybody do the team workout with us? Anybody?
No, I posted it in our group, and Jody responded was like, "Oh, that looks tough," and nobody else said a word.
Okay, well, I'm going to text Jody right now and say, what is that's next Friday, or is that this Friday?
I think it's this Friday because Seth said no because he's doing Ironman Louisville this Saturday or this Sunday.
All right, so are you in for the team workout? All right, message her. If not, you and I'll do it together. We'll change the reps to fit two, or we'll just do it all. We'll figure it out.
I
All
mean,
right,
how
so let's talk a little bit about hey, traveling and eating, and I know we've done, specific podcasts on like Disney, and we've done, different ones. But let's talk, kind of what Katie and I did to stay on track during our camping slash van trip. And other than not lifting, we were still very physically active. We just didn't do any resistance training on the trip, and a couple different reasons for that. One, could have done some body weight stuff, could have packed some bands, that type of stuff. But once again, living out of a van, it was kind of limited space. So we didn't pack anything. And then we just really, for a couple of reasons, I wanted to take a week off of lifting, just to kind of give my body time to recover. I've had some trouble out of just hips and shoulders and all that from, training. So it was a good way to just once again take a taper week or deload week, whatever some of the terminology is out there, which I think is good every now and again. And then on the flip side of it, knew that we would be doing a lot of hiking, with packs, which is some resistance for the lower body, just not necessarily the upper body. And we end up, once again, I think it was right below 80 miles that we ended up hiking. And we rented mountain bikes 3 different times. And I want to say respectively 10 to 15 miles each time that we on the bike. So active wise, a lot of calories burned, throughout the days. we traditionally would start breakfast for me was a protein shake and one of our pro bars. So we were able to find the Fairlife fairly easy. Canada had the Fairlife shakes, and then rest stops inside of Montana had them. So we were able to kind of keep those. I think there was only one morning that transition, I didn't have, that for a shake. So I was able to start the day with 45 grams of protein. And then generally we would pack turkey sandwiches for our hike. So where we're hiking for the day, we would schedule our lunch. And that was another 30, 40 grams of protein for the amount of turkey that was putting on there. So I feel like I did well, as far as getting protein in, and packing quality food. So I would do a lot of fruit bars and a lot of trail mix. So if anything on a downfall was my love of trail mix, is like kind of like peanut butter. So maybe overconsume some trail mix as far as calories go. But once again, I think calorie burn was so high that that didn't matter. But that was traditionally what we stacked with. And even with the calorie expenditure being higher, I added in a lot of times at dinner, avocado. So picked up some avocados and I would just have one avocado with dinner. And then our dinners were cooked on, a little stove, which we use natural gas this time around. It wasn't propane. And we would just fix up like chicken or turkey, a bunch of it, and then just reuse it day in and day out. Okay. So overall, ate pretty clean. I would say the negatives as far as calories, goes would be a little bit of alcohol, calories, and then, once again, trail mix. The only processed thing that we'd have in there is extra M&Ms that we put in the trail mix. So that was kind of what we went with for, the hiking and the trip. Didn't have much room, small little refrigerator in there, very small freezer. But overall, once again, minus the alcohol and maybe some of the candy that was in the trail mix, pretty much real foods, as far as the sandwiches and what we fixed for dinner. So I wish I would have weighed myself when I came back. I do feel leaner. 10 days out there of just, doing the hiking. We slept good, so that was another thing I think was an improvement just because, once again, the kids stayed home. It's a lot less crazy, when it's just two adults and no kids. So the quality of sleep was good, even with getting up early to make some hikes before the crowd got there. So all in all, is like to say we kept it simple. Made sure that we prioritized the protein and the produce was there. Did a lot more dried fruit than normal, and we had fruit, berries on hand at most times. And the only thing that was probably a little bit different was here we will use the low carb tortillas that have like the 15 grams of fiber. I'm trying to think of the name of offhand.
Extreme
Versus
wellness. Is it the extreme wellness?
No, it's not. That's not the name of them. And I guess there's a few different ones that you can get, right? But we just had regular tortillas, that packed a punch of like 50 grams of carbs per tortilla. That maybe we wouldn't do when we're here. But once again, I don't think the extra calories hurt me because the calorie expenditure was so high because of the activity, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that was, kind of how we handled it. And once again, coming back, over the weekend we were busy with some family stuff, but I've been in the green in my whoop, the first 2 days of this week. I feel really good, as I mentioned earlier, mentally, physically, and I feel a little bit leaner. I just haven't hopped on the scale because I'm really trying to go by body composition and how I look versus the scale at this phase of my journey. So pretty happy with the trip and how we consumed, during the trip.
That's awesome.
And I would encourage anybody, like, if you're an outdoors person, put it on your list. Glacier National Park, it is crowded, and so is Banff and Jasper in Canada. They are crowded, but I think those are some of the places that you need to see, and then spend some time getting off the beating path. So we found a lot of cool hikes that wasn't crowded. Did a lot of stuff where there wasn't a lot of people, and we had a really good time. And Katie and I discussed this. Like, we definitely want to, and we can't always make it away for a week every year. I understand that because it's really our first trip that we did together. But we're going to make it where at least a weekend a year, we're camping and it's just us, and leave the kids at home. But also, like, taking the kids camping, like, it's going to be a big part of what we do because, we both come back, more motivated for work, more motivated as parents, than we have in a long time. And I think a lot of that was just being able to spend a lot of time outdoors and reground yourself. And, for us, that's what fills our cup.
I love it. It looked awesome. I know pictures don't do things justice, but the pictures looked amazing. So I can
Yeah.
only imagine what it's like.
And I've still got to, and it'll take me a little bit. I still got to pull it all off the camera because I took a lot of photos with the camera too, not just on my phone. So I've really got to pull them off and edit it. And I hope to, share those over the next few months and not inundate everybody with, just that. So I'm trying to get back in my education posting today, because everything's been outdoor posts, which is awesome, but trying to get back into the education. So, hey, takeaways, guys. Just a little update. Where me and Montae are at right now. We talked about it. Remember, the First Form app is not only for our coaching, but there's also some great exercise programs on there. We will not be offended if you just download the app and add us as your advisor because you can still see our education, you can still see our announcements. But if you don't do the premium version, you don't necessarily get the one-on-one messaging, right? Which is totally fine. Once again, if you're just looking for workouts and looking for education, you can still download the app and use those tools, from that standpoint. And then once again, I challenge you, go and be the 1 or 2%. Don't be the other 99, 98%. Let's go and if you've never ran a marathon, half marathon, challenge yourself, sign up for it. You need assistance, we'll be more than happy to help. But I want to challenge people to get out of their comfort zone, and get into that growing zone. So Monte, appreciate you. Listeners, appreciate you. Hopefully, we got a lot more coming down the pipeline over the next few months. And I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
Appreciate you, Jeremy.